I think India has been making a lot of headway in terms of e-government, like other countries around the world. As more technology develops and the cost becomes cheaper to own a landline or a cellular phone, and there are smartphones introduced and other devices are introduced, we see that there is more emphasis on provision of services by the government through these devices. And that, as we spoke about earlier today, helps the average citizen build trust with the government. The average citizen obtains information from the government on what services are available, what the citizen's rights are, what information can the citizen use for productive employment, for increasing profit margins, and ultimately for improving the standard of development. So these conferences and forums around the world help in supporting that goal. These forums also help in capacity building, as you know, and these forums also help in terms of networking capabilities and capacities. People get to know each other, they learn from each other, as well as they obtain information on how they can put certain IT applications, and I would go beyond that and say how certain policies are helping support development around the world. Those are also lessons learned for India as well as for other developing countries in the world. Our initiatives are varied. We do multiple types of work. We do basically 3 types of work at the United Nations. We do advocacy and outreach, whereby we take the lessons learned from around the world, whether it is developed countries or it is developing countries, and we propagate them, disseminate them, and we package them for adoption in other parts of the world. That's one thing we do. We also provide advisory and capacity building services, whereby United Nations staff are requested to support and help and advise on government policies, whether it is IT policies, but in particular it is IT for development policies, including e-government and e-government for development policies. And the third very important area that we do is that we benchmark. And we, as you probably know, the United Nations puts out an e-government index, which is now the world-renowned index on how countries are doing in terms of service delivery and information provision around the world. So we rank 193 United Nations member states for in terms of how capable and how willing are those governments to provide services to their citizens.
Finally, what is your comment about the organizations which are doing such a lot of work on e-governance, ICT?
I think they are doing excellent work. I think that they are in the business of capturing information about IT applications around India, whether it is in a rural area or it is in a large metropolitan urban area, and they bring that information together, they package it and they present it not only in forums such as this one, but also through their 3 magazines, which I think I had the chance to take a look at them. I think they provide very useful short case studies of what is happening where. And I must say that I was very impressed in terms of the kind of initiatives which are being undertaken, whether it is on e-participation and democracy, or it is in terms of improving the livelihoods of the farmers in the rural areas, or it is in the large urban areas. I think these and the organizers, particularly Ravi Gupta, should be commended for all the work that he has been putting, and I wish him all the success in the future such forums. Okay, no, can I just take a look at the question?
ICT and development is a 1.2 billion population,
yes,
and 40% Indian population is below poverty line.
Yeah.
So how ICT can be an universal equalizer in such a scenario?
Universal equalizer is a good word. We use the word digital divide, which you also are familiar with. It is a very important subject for United Nations. As you know, it is part of our work in the Millennium Development Goals as well. ICT is, I think, a major equalizer or potential equalizer for digital divides, whether the divide exists between urban and rural, whether the divide exists between men and women, whether the divide exists between income classes. So IT can support this by leapfrogging development. It allows 24/7 nature of IT, allows a user to partake of information, of learning, of opportunities, in every field that is possible. And I personally think that it is an immense equalizer for digital divide purposes.
Then what has changed in the last decade in e-governance in India, and where do you see e-governance moving in the coming decade?
E-government and e-governance has leaped in the last 1 decade. From the time in 2002 or 2003, few countries were promoting and utilizing e-government in a broader sense. They started out by, and India also started out by employing use of ICT, which is e-government, primarily for improving transparency and accountability, for effectiveness and efficiency, but within the government operations. At first, we saw that all civil servants were given a computer to work with, but that was a far cry. The world, and indeed India, has moved beyond that. Now they have realized that the potential of e-government beyond efficiency and effectiveness within the government operations is also moved to provision of services to the citizens. We talked about provision of taxes, provision of finance, of transactional services that you can pay online. You can have other opportunities which are available to the citizen 24/7, and that allowed a broader definition of e-governance. And I think that India, along with many other countries of the world, has seized that moment, seized the opportunity to develop its IT structure, its IT access, its IT service availability, and is doing very well in this area.
India has just started financial inclusion EUID like projects to achieve the goals of inclusive growth. So how do you see the role of these projects in India?
I think these projects are important. Financial inclusion, like other forms of inclusion through IT, is very important. As you know, IT is available to everybody, can potentially be available to everybody, and can be a great equalizer. So from that point of view, financial inclusion and these projects are very useful.
Ma'am, please elaborate on the challenges faced while deploying ICT in developing nations like India, especially in rural areas.
Challenges are immense. We know that first of all, access to IT is an important challenge. Now that means that in the traditional sense, before this internet era, we needed to provide physical infrastructure to the rural areas. For large developing countries such as India, with large populations of more than 1.23 billion, this was often a costly exercise. Of course, the cellular technology advances in the world in the last 10 years has kind of taken over from the overall goal of provision of landline-based infrastructure. So that has helped. However, challenges remain. Challenges remain in providing digital literacy. Challenges remain in still connecting every citizen, and challenges remain in including the marginalized groups. A large segment of the population is neither literate or digital, or I would say neither digitally literate or is well versed with the use of computers. That by itself is a challenge. But even before the challenges of access and human resources, the challenge is the acceptance of the digital era. And that by itself is related to culture, it's related to policy, it's related to the enabling environment, and that's very important for the policymakers to focus on.
Ma'am, what are your views on the inclusion of mobile technology in the governance system delivery models?
Mobile technology is the latest upcoming technology by which governments can provide a lot of services. As you are aware, in developed world, a number of services are now being offered through the M technology, which is the mobile technology. And this is the wave of the future. As prices drop and everybody is able to partake of this particular technology, it will become more and more incumbent on the governments to shift a lot of resources, or I should say supplement a lot of resource provision through the mobile technology, particularly for the rural areas.
Yeah. India is the nation of villages, and 65% Indian population live in villages, rural areas. So how ICT can be helpful in improving agriculture scenario in rural areas?
IT has already proved to be very important. For example, if you know that farmers, for example, they depend on adequate pricing for their crops. If adequate pricing is available through only a particular medium, which is a person or an institution, it can be delayed and it can not provide the farmer with the right type of information at the right time. IT can provide such information 24/7 and is ubiquitous in nature. So just one example is adequate price fluctuations, adequate price availability to the farmer can be very important in terms of the returns that the farmer gets on his products.
Yeah. And one last question, what is the role of your organization in promoting e-governance in the government?
United Nations is the lead agency in terms of providing e-government to the whole world. We do three kinds of things. We do advocacy and advisory services for member states, which are countries whereby they can request us for capacity building in their own countries. Secondly, we provide global information and outreach through worldwide conferences in which we promote lessons learned and the way forward. We build guidelines on what is a good e-government strategy. We build other forms of lessons learned and compendiums which can be taken and utilized indigenously in a country and they have been utilized around the world. Thirdly, as you probably know, the United Nations also developed an e-government readiness ranking, whereby we rank all the 193 countries on the basis of how willing and capable they are in producing information, in providing information and services to the citizens. And this is our 8th year of tracking such benchmarking activities of member states, of countries around the world. And we hope to produce the results very soon. This benchmarking readiness index is one indicator now for e-government readiness used by the World Bank, by the European Union, by the Davos as a measure of how ready the governments around the world are to provide services to their citizens.
And are you doing something in underdeveloped nations like Somalia and
Yes, so we do the benchmarking survey that I talk about is for all countries of the world. In addition, we have a special focus on Africa, whereby we are active in utilization of information technology to the parliaments of several African countries. In addition, we provide services on an advisory basis to many African countries for their capacity building in information technology.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining.